What is up, guys? Phaedo82 coming at you with a weekly Rust update video. Sorry it's a little bit later than usual. I've had to deal with some personal matters this week, but let's go ahead and get right into it. The next iteration of the procedurally generated terrain has been added into Rust, and it's shaking things up quite a bit. There's improved player spawn positions on beaches, a new coastline generation, distinct cliffs and canyons throughout the map, underwater visuals, and a highly restricted snow biome. Taking a look at the underwater visuals, they are placeholder effects at this point in time, so you will see them progress in the future, but it's already adding a lot more atmosphere when you go underwater, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. One of the biggest changes here is the snow biome has greatly reduced, and it's now relegated to mountaintops and mountain peaks, so if you guys want to go ahead and build in the snow, it's going to be a much more difficult challenge, especially on high population servers. So the snow biome is going to be prime real estate at this point in time. You're going to have to scale these mountains to get up there and build it. Taking a look at an overhead procedurally generated map, you can really see how much of a game changer this is and how limited that snow biome is now going to be. Beyond the changes to the terrain, you guys are going to notice some new rad towns popping up this week in Rust. There are 5 new rad towns, or dungeons as they're referred to, that have been added into the game, replacing the vast majority of the placeholder rad towns that are now gone. The satellite dish, the airfield, and the sphere still do exist. The satellite dish has some changes to it, but those will still be in the game because they were the newer models. These are missing textures, these new rad towns, so be aware they're a bit unoptimized in these areas and there's a lot missing at this point in time, but you can get a general sense of it all when you go ahead and take a look at it. The 5 different models that have been added in are a waste treatment plant, a train yard, a power plant, a military tunnel, and a canyon. In these areas, guys, you're going to find everything you'd find in a typical rad town, but it's going to increase player interaction, especially when you're down in tunnels. They're very engaging when you're in these areas, and you're going to find very dynamic situations with players. You cannot build in these areas like the other rad towns. There's a radius of restricted building, so you won't be able to place a building necessarily inside the area. You can build around the perimeter of the rad town, however. This is a really big shakeup, guys, and it's really cool. In the future, I'm sure that these are going to play a more central role in the game. Again, at this point in time, there's a lot of placeholder artwork here, and the gameplay is a little bit laggy here. You can get stuck in certain areas, but all of this is going to be fleshed out and ironed out, and I'm really glad that they're able to add it in. Remember, guys, when you look at this footage, that this is still an alpha game, and by playing Rust, we are, for all intents and purposes, alpha testers. So when we look at things like this and we see missing textures, just understand that that's part of the process and part of what we're signing up for. This right here is actually one of my favorite models, even though it's not the most in-depth one, but that satellite dish with the new satellite dish added next to it and then the one that's half buried in the ground, I think it's really cool, and I've had a lot of fun running around this area. You will notice with these new rad towns, you saw it in the beginning of this video if you picked up on it, but the pump jacks have been added in. You can't craft them and you can't place them in your own bases, but most of these rad towns will have a pump jack that you can utilize. So even though the pump jacks were removed from the game, you can go ahead and use it in these locations, but you won't be safe while you're using it, so it's going to have sort of a heightened sense of vulnerability when you're using it, and increased player interactions and those dynamic interactions, which is always something that's much needed in Rust. This power plant that you're looking at right here is a really cool one, and there's lots of hidden tunnels here, and just looking at it from the eye in the sky perspective, you can see the scope of it. These are much broader for the most part than the other rad towns. Some are smaller than others, but you're going to really notice when you get in these areas, you can really get lost in them and have really sort of a sense of just the grand scheme of it all when you're here. It's very interesting and really adds to the overall atmosphere of Rust. You guys are really going to have a lot of fun, especially when these rad towns are fleshed out in the future. The primitive Eoka pistol has received some love in this week's version of Rust, and you guys are going to notice it has an increased spread. The spread has actually been doubled, and the handmade shell count has been doubled as well. So if you guys like the Eoka, you're going to have a lot more fun with it this go around with Rust.
Come on, dude, kill me. Literally everybody in this fucking game attacks me for no reason, so you do it too. I'm quitting. This game will die because of faggots like you.
The range on the melee weapons has been tweaked with this week's version of Rust, and all of the melee weapons, with the exception of the spear, now have the same range. The spear does have a higher range, as it should, but the other melee weapons are going to be much more viable and rewarding in combat now, because you're going to be able to better predict and land your shots with better accuracy, and it's going to make it for a much more engaging and visceral experience. This is really cool. We had a lot of fun testing it out and playing around with it. And keep in mind, guys, that the spear again does have a slightly better range, and always, guys, you can throw your one-handed weapons. The character models and skin tones are going to look a little bit better this week in Rust. You're going to notice your characters look a little bit sexier, a little bit glossier and shinier. And we saw some more concept artwork for the Scientist NPC PvE event. This one's holding some type of an assault rifle, looks like an AK, so a little more intimidating. That's really cool. Can't wait to see that added in. Really hope it's added in. Again, it's probably not in the near future, but hopefully we'll see that soon. We saw some more artwork on that semi-automatic rifle, which looks like it's getting closer to getting into the game. And we also saw some concept artwork in the dev blog for some different versions of things that you can upgrade in your bases, some more options for building. That's really cool, and we always want to see that in the game. As always, guys, really hope you enjoyed this week's update video. Phaedo82, peace.